welcome to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. Well, today we are taking a look at what happened in Bihar and also its impact on the elections of 2024, because the opposition had always been wondering that there is no one to take on Narendra Modi. In fact, Nitish Kumar's name had been shortlisted in 2019, but by then he had, of course, done a U-turn and again shaken hands with Modi. So there went that plan. But it looks like Nitish Kumar has done yet another U-turn. He's back in the Mahagathbandhan, back of the opposition. And will he be projected as the face, as the Indian, pan-Indian face, North Indian face rather, pan-Indian to take on Narendra Modi? That is something we are going to be discussing on today's show. Joining me is Nilanjan Mukhopadhyay. He's an author. He's written a book on Prime Minister Modi. He's written a book on the RSS. We have Sohail Seth, he's a commentator, a marketing maven, columnist. Rashid Kidwai, again author of 24 Akbar Road and other political biographies. And Pawan Verma, he's someone who knows Nitish Kumar well, has been with the JDU. He also knows Mamata Banerjee pretty well because he's done a stint at the TMC also. So all the opposition candidates, Pawan, you know very well. But before I get you in, I'll get Nilanjan in. Nilanjan, what is the situation as you look at it? What are Nitish Kumar's chances of taking on Narendra Modi?
Well, I think, it lot depends on the other parties. I remember in 2015, when the assembly elections, he became chief minister in alliance with the RJD. At that point, there was talk of putting him up against Modi. But thereafter, in 2017, he went and joined, so everything changed. So there is still a lot of time between now and 24. There would be also ambitions of other leaders. But as of now, it seems that he has a fair chance to emerge as an opposition face. And if that happens, the BJP will have to go back to its calculations and the drawing board once again, because there will be impact definitely in statewide. And also, I think that there is this huge and a very significant as well as influential Bihari diaspora outside of Bihar across in every state. And I think there would be possibly some kind of changes, because otherwise that this diaspora has traditionally been supportive of the BJP and Mr. Modi. But once they see the chance that somebody from Bihar may well get a chance at becoming the prime minister, they might well switch sides, and that could actually in some constituencies start to leveraging in a very significant way. Still very early, we have not gone and done our calculations, but on the face of it, I think the BJP would be looking at its tables once again.
Okay. I have Pawan, someone who's done his calculations. Pawan Verma, I have also a harbor suspicion that Prashant Kishore going to Bihar, Nitish Kumar deciding to again do a U-turn. Any connections there? And how do you see Nitish Kumar as a face to take on Prime Minister Modi?
No, I think Nitish Kumar had the credibility and may resurrect it again of being a kind of leader who has the age, seniority, the experience, and frankly, in spite of the 2017 U-turn, the right instincts of an inclusive, tolerant, plural, multicultural, multi-religious country. However, what is important in Bihar now is another lesson which I think is larger for the opposition as a whole. Priya, you may have noticed that the entire opposition in Bihar, 7 parties, have come together. And therefore, it signifies that although there have been differences in the past, and there will perhaps continue to be such differences, there is a new resolve which shows a new template of opposition unity. Bihar is an important Hindi heartland state, and fortunately, we have 20 months to go for the next parliamentary elections. So, politics is dynamic, a lot can happen. And I think Nitish Kumar jettisoning the BJP opens the door for a much greater rethink in the opposition in terms of overall strategy, pan-India coordination, grassroots organization, a minimum common program, and so on and so forth, which can actually bring the opposition in a united fight against the BJP. Nitish Kumar, in my view, has the credentials to be an important player in this endeavor. But as Nilanjan said, it is the favorite question of the BJP, not of the opposition. The favorite question of the BJP, who is the leader in the opposition, which only serves the purpose of furthering the wedges of divide in the opposition. Right now, it's time to go back to the drawing table and think about how to forge a united opposition, because as I've said before, the essential USP of the BJP and of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, notwithstanding his personal popularity, is a divided opposition. And on that basis, votes being divided and benefiting the BJP. So this is exactly what Bihar has shown, that the entire opposition can come together to take on the BJP.
But Sahel, out of all the leaders that we've discussed, you and I, so many times, Mamata Banerjee, KCR, Sharad Pawar, Nitish Kumar does stand head and shoulders above the rest. I mean, I'm not even counting the Gandhis. I'll let Rashid bring them in.
I much as I admire both Niranjan and Pawan, I totally disagree. I think Nitish Kumar becoming Prime Minister in 2024 will be like me becoming Prime Minister in 2024. It's not going to happen. You can harbor ambition, but it has to be tempered with reality. What's Nitish Kumar's track record? Governance, zero. If governance, there was a great track record, Bihar wouldn't be in the state it is in. Number two, loyalty, zero. He has done more U-turns than a car which has lost its way on a national highway. Number three, he has never, ever sacrificed power. He's always been hankering for power. He came in with a lower seat count than the BJP, became chief minister, lower seat count than RJD has become chief minister. And finally, let me tell you, Modi is way ahead both in terms of marketing and outreach. 2024 isn't far. You're already in the middle of 2022. 2023, you will go into election mode. And in that election mode, watch what Modi is going to do in terms of unleashing the central machinery, either to punish or to reward. And in that scenario, becoming prime minister is not a joke. You can have an opposition candidate. I mean, Margaret Alva becoming vice president was like Rashid Kidwai getting the Nobel Prize for peace. I mean, he one day might get it for literature. But, it doesn't just
They
add
get it
up.
for peace also.
These are names that you can proffer. And a lot of people say, Plus, remember, politics is not about who's the lesser evil, but about who's the smarter man for the job. So the comparison between Nitish and Modi would be odious only in one sense, that Modi's got an entire machinery. Modi's got funding. I mean, Nitish Kumar doesn't even have 100 the funding that the BJP has. Number three, look at the cadre network that the BJP will employ. The Gandhis can barely work for themselves, forget work for others. Then you have the Rahul Gandhi abstinence or negation factor. What if Rahul Gandhi says, no, I'm not going to support Nitish Kumar for prime ministerial aspirant? What are you going to do? And finally, hate him, love him, hate his policies. Modi is the only person, when he inflicts pain, people perceive it to be joy. You ask people, the common man, they still say, काम बहुत करते हैं, hard working hai, he has done a lot for the country. So, his personal brand is very, very, very strong. And when people choose the prime minister, and that's why Mamata, for two reasons. One is her linguistic inability to look at the entire country, other than the South, of course. And number two, again, the numbers, they don't add up.
But Rashid, so one thing I take differ with you. I mean, you said Nitish Kumar has never sacrificed power. The Gandhis sacrificed power. That time you said, oh, they're too scared, they're too whatever.
But they sacrificed power. All the media people loved it when crocodile tears were shed and Manmohan Singh became media. Kya tyag hai? Kya tyag kiya? Oh, kya tyag hai? Remember, when you do tyag, you also have the remote control in your hand. I can understand if she had sacrificed the remote control as well. So let's not go there. People have realized that she was the power behind the throne then. And now the son wants to be the power behind the throne. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had the mess you have in Rajasthan. You wouldn't have had the mess that they had in Goa.
Okay.
So, there's a track record of disarray. And even Pawan will agree, for people like Prashant Kishore who are strategists, the first thing you need is everyone to follow one strategy. You can't have people, moving here and there, because then that destroys the entire strategic process. And my worry is that these guys will enable that to happen.
So, Rashid, maybe you'll take the question that Pawan didn't answer. Is there any Prashant Kishore role in all this?
I think Priya, it takes two to tango. I think it's too early. It is for Nitish Kumar to reach out to Prashant Kishore, not the other way around. So that's the long and short of it. I think we must give 6 months time from now onwards to for all these things to fall in place. The opposition story would always look very chaotic. Mr. Nitish Kumar is 5 years late in a way. But that does not mean that the scenario of 24 is settled, is far from settled. End of the day, you need to reduce just 100 Lok Sabha seats from what BJP has or NDA has it today and what it would be in 2024. And that's not a very difficult thing, simply because Mr. Nitish Kumar is not a Gandhi. Gandhis would be very happy. This is my assessment. They would be very happy. They have found somebody who's there to take on or perceived to be take on Mr. Narendra Modi, and it's not Rahul Gandhi. So Rahul Gandhi is not, as I keep saying and writing, that they are not, they're trustees of power. They are not power wielders. That's a model they have, and that model has worked very well. And so personally, I feel that they would be very happy what's happening now. So it all depends upon how Nitish Kumar conducts himself, how others come along. But if we see a very kind of seamless kind of thing, and that kind of thing that Mr. Narendra Modi had, that build up from 2011, 12 onwards to 14 or so, I don't think we are going to see this. We're going to see a lot of people changing sides and all. This government is not going to give up very easily. And when you say about the ED and all, it cuts both ways. Now you see nobody's prepared to ally with this regime and with this leaders. So I think Mr. Modi and the BJP has overplayed its ED, CBI, all those central agencies card. And if there is any deficit for 272, if we look at 200, 210, 220 situation, I don't see even Jagan Mohan and others going and siding. And Nitish Kumar suits everyone. So this is a beauty of it. It may work, may not work. I'm not saying it will work, but this is a scenario which is quite, promising. And if persons like PK and Mr. Pawan Verma and all, come and become kind of soldiers and lieutenants, what they were 5 years ago, you will see that there is the game in hand.
Pawan, is your break with Nitish Kumar irrevocable? Is there any chance? Because I think you and Prashant Kishore are also very similar in your politics and in your equations.
And it's not irrevocable. As you know, I joined Nitish Kumar after resigning from the Foreign Service. And he was, I must confess, very kind to me. Very month I joined him, he made me advisor with cabinet rank, and next year he sent me to the Rajya Sabha. And we share a good rapport. We have been in touch even after I left. I left because, frankly, I was uncomfortable after he joined with the BJP in 2017.
Yeah.
And let me say to you, so was he. The question was of when he would move, and there were several reasons for it, which I can explain to you. But as far as what Suhail said, I have great respect for his views. You see, the tag of political immorality should be spoken of with care. Narendra Modi said that there is something wrong in the DNA of Mr. Nitish Kumar, genetically.
That is unfair.
And he, in 2017, joined with Nitish Kumar to form a government. The BJP made a government in Jammu Kashmir with the PDP. Now the PDP leadership is under house arrest or behind bars. In the case of Maharashtra, today BJP is left with no allies. Secondly, I think it's conservative political thinking to believe that political dominance will forever remain unchallenged because the prospects to challenge it are not immediately visible. I mean, there are very legitimate discontents in the people today under the awning of India shining. And it is a question of whether there can emerge a face, a narrative, and the organizational structure to challenge the BJP on the basis of those discontents. Whether it's price rise, whether it's unemployment, whether it's the authoritarian nature of the regime, whether it's the endemic instability which neither Hindus nor Muslims want as a result of religious bigotry and division in society. There are legitimate discontents. And the BJP knows that its strength is when the opposition is divided. And the manner in which it treats, it's an imperialist, expansionist, and aggressive party. Nitish Kumar made a comparison with Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, on whose government he was, and how it was a kind of government which was inclusive, which respected its allies. And don't forget, even though I concede that he made a U-turn in 2017, when he was railway minister, he was the only minister who in that time resigned as after a train accident, taking responsibility. In 2013, he was perhaps the only national leader who rebelled from the NDA to protest a BJP coming with Mr. Narendra Modi at its helm. And he persisted with his opposition, paid the consequences of it also. So, I'm saying that yes, 2017 was in a way inexplicable for me also. But it's not as if he is the only person that can be accused of this kind of what may be called political agility. There are other parties, and I can name one after the other. So that is not the issue. The question is, how will this new arrangement govern? What will be the outreach to other political leaderships? How will the opposition utilize these 20 months to build a more coherent narrative?
I'm going to cut you and take a break and try and answer some of these questions that you have raised, but after a quick break. Hello and welcome back to the roundtable. We are discussing whether Nitish Kumar can he pose a formidable challenge to Narendra Modi in the 2024 elections. Nitish, some of the points that Pawan has raised in terms of Nitish Kumar's politics. He has a governance track record. He's 8-term CM. He cannot be accused of corruption because his family lives back in the village. He's not got them to the CM house. So on a lot of grounds, he checks a lot of boxes, and the whole Bihari diaspora issue that you raised.
You asked me, I lost your voice for a split second.
How do you see Nitish Kumar's governance record as a challenger?
Well, in the first term, between 2005 and 2010, there was actually very good performance. People talked about as to how law and order had improved, how development had been done. Lots of roads in Bihar were made. Virtually all the entire flyover network of Patna city, which I'm married into a family of Bihar, so I keep on going there. So it has actually changed, but thereafter there have been, it's a mixed baggage. I would not say that it's been terrible. I know that what Sahgal was saying, that it has not been able to do much, but then whose governance record has been very good? What has the NDA done in the last 8 years? Mr. Modi, take out the publicity campaign which is there, then I think, we would actually assess his governance and track record in a completely different framework. Very recently, I was just looking at the number of promises which have been made on the 15th of August over the last few years. It's either been repackaged or really nothing has really been achieved. I'm sure that we'll be talking about it as we get closer to the 15th of August. Two very important points, which are there. I do agree with Sahgal that at the moment, Mr. Modi has a huge lead. But that does not mean that the opposition should not try. There's also this question which keeps on coming up all the time, that Nitish Kumar has really not been loyal with anyone. But then let's look at it the other way around. No other party has any problems with Nitish Kumar at any point of time. BJP tied up with Nitish Kumar in 2005 or even before that. Thereafter, when he parted ways in 2012-13 after Mr. Modi being made the leader of the BJP. Lalu Yadav was perfectly comfortable with Nitish Kumar. 2017 onward, Mr. Modi again became very comfortable despite the terrible personal hostility which went on between the two of them. We do remember that 2009 very famous act which Mr. Modi did, of holding Nitish Kumar's hand in Ludhiana rally and hoisting it up. Nitish Kumar has never forgiven Mr. Modi for that. So we know this track record, despite that both of them came together. So it is not that the only time it was only not Mr. Nitish Kumar who was, not really being very loyal to his track record. Everybody else was doing it. That is because of the very peculiar nature of Bihar's social fabric, or the vote banks that you talk about. So Mr. Nitish Kumar, despite being the smaller party, has always been made chief minister because of that he has a certain aura. At the moment, Lalu Yadav can't become the chief minister because of the convictions against him. His son is not yet ready for it. BJP simply does not have a face yet. That is why whenever they have to tie up with Nitish Kumar, it's quite possible that they might have to do it once again in the future, in a few years from now. Till the time Mr. Nitish Kumar is there, and fully functional and politically active, I do not see any other party at the moment being able to look at anybody else but Nitish Kumar as the alternate. So I think that these are the reasons as to why this coalition, this opposition coming together, what Pawan Verma was saying is absolutely correct, that let us see how this works. 7 months down the line, we might actually say, no, this is not working, that this is becoming another 2015 to 2017 equation. I only hope that this does not become, because as a journalist, there can be nothing better for us than a very keenly contested elections where we cannot actually call the elections till the last hour of the counting. That's the kind of election I look for.
We all want. But I don't think in the Modi era we are getting that. I agree with Sahgal on that. But what I disagree with you is that the loyalty part. Even Modi has not been loyal. Look at the way he treated his own mentor, Advani. So, the loyalty charge can be countered.
It's
politics mein hai nahi loyalty.
But exactly. I keep saying this even when they discuss parliament. Two wrongs don't make a right. He may be disloyal, but he's prime minister. Na? Nitish Kumar is disloyal, he's chief minister. You can't say that. B, here we are talking about just not one person. It's also an entire machinery. Elections are not won by individuals. They are won by cadres. The communists ran Bengal because it was cadre-based. The BJP runs India, or whatever parts of India they run, thanks to the RSS's cadre. It's not that Modi and Amit Shah are going out and campaigning. Now, when you have an opposition which has 30 parties or 20 parties, each with their own respective cadres, the Congress's cadre is only busy defending the two Gandhis. So they're not into politics. They're into personalities. So forget the Congress for a while. Tomorrow, the beauty about the Congress is it only comes together to defend their own family leadership when it is embroiled in corruption. They have not come together on any issue. Now, if you look at Nitish Kumar today, everyone, and Pawan is bang on, the U-turns have been there for all to see. Indira Gandhi invented Ayaram, Gayaram politics, so it's nothing that Modi or Nitish Kumar have invented. Point I'm making is that the machinery that is being employed to win elections today was never employed earlier. B, the amount of money that is being employed today was never employed earlier. 3, whether you call it fake news or agenda-driven narrative or calibrated narratives, those have become the order of the day. Nitish Kumar is not fighting Narendra Modi. He's fighting two things: a well-oiled machine, and number 2, a greatly consumer insight-driven party. The party understands these things. They understand what has to be done and who has to be used for what. So you're up against a lot. Yes, there will be, we need an alternative. My point is, I'm not here to say Nitish is not the alternative. I'm only saying Nitish will not become prime minister. Alternatives, so there are many.
Pronounce the result.
Ideally, if we wanted a decent country, Pawan should have been the prime minister of India. But we don't want decency, perhaps. Or, Rashid should have been the chairman of the Sahitya Academy. But wo bichara ghar pe baith ke sirf NewsX ke programs karte hai roj.
सारे channels
पे हमारी किस्मत है भाई. हमारी तो किस्मत यही है.
Acha. Before we start crying on our Kismat, Rashid, your take on Nitish's Kismat.
I think, Priya, we must look at history in a very dispassionate manner. You look at every time there is a strong leadership, it's followed by a coalition. You look at Indira Gandhi era, and then you had a rainbow, kind of coalition. Then you had again Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi, and then you again had, the coalition governments by VP Singh and Chandrasekhar. Similarly, Narasimha Rao was not a kind of strong leader, but he did run for 5 years. And then you had, coalition leader. Then Vajpayee, then again it was followed by coalition. So I think sooner or later a coalition would come in. And you see, God is not an Englishman. We must understand it is mavericks who make it, big. So it was Morarji Desai was a maverick, Charan Singh was a maverick, Chandrasekhar was a maverick, Vishwanath Pratap Singh was a maverick. All of them, made it, they became a prime minister. And if Mr. Nitish Kumar is a maverick, he's a Palturam or whatever we may call it. You see, people like it. You look at numbers in Bihar, they are very evenly poised. The difference between two political formations in last time election was few thousand votes. So here it's a zero, loss thing for players. It is just depends upon how many Lok Sabha seat who wins. I know things are very difficult, but again I am saying if BJP NDA is short by 50 seats, Lok Sabha seats, nobody is going to come in, and we will have an alternative government in place.
Last but a very brief word to you, Pawan. You've been saying Mamta Banerjee could have emerged at that phase, but she's, I don't think she's been able to go beyond. Do you see Nitish Kumar at least has a wider appeal than Mamta Banerjee?
I think that I agree with you that his appeal is wider and his acceptability is higher, and Mamta Banerjee is a very tall leader in her own right. But there is a saying, and I just will finish with 1 minute. There's a line of Ghalib which says, Har bulandi ke nasibo mein hai pasti ek din. Every pinnacle has in its very destiny one day its demise. So when we say that politics, given the current scenario and the strengths the BJP has, which Suhail narrated quite accurately, look at the situation. I mean, here was a man in 1977 who was alone in an ashram in Bihar, long retired, who emerged, called Jayaprakash Narayan. And Indira Gandhi, with the emergency, with the strength of the Congress, with the funds, with the resources, with the intelligence, lost her own election. Look at Rajiv Gandhi in 1984. 404 MPs, never seen in Indian parliamentary history. And a divided and motley opposition. 8 people met in a drawing room in 1987. There emerged somebody called VP Singh, who then, Rajiv Gandhi lost the election. So I am not saying this will happen. I understand the strengths of the BJP, but I am saying that beyond a point, when people have had enough of a certain kind of narrative and political practice, they will vote accordingly. And all the organization doesn't help. Look at Bengal. By apocryphal accounts, 2,000 crores spent on an entirely communal agenda. And the BJP was badly worsted, notwithstanding the strengths they have. So, politics, as I said, is dynamic. Let us wait and watch. There is no need for euphoria, and there is no need for complete pessimism.
Don't call that election just yet, Suhail. But on that note, thank you all. And, a lot of people have compared.
I'm telling you now.
We got
2024, Narendra Damodar Das Modi will be sworn in as India's Prime Minister. Unless something happens physically. But otherwise, he is India's next Prime Minister. We are on August 12, 2022. You can buy me a drink later.
That's conventional wisdom, not without basis. But I think that a little bit of such absolute certainty should be interrogated.
On that note, otherwise where will
this is the English I crave for. Lovely.
On that note, in fact, everybody says that Prime Minister Modi is a lot like Indira Gandhi. So just like her, maybe his biggest challenge, maybe a maverick from Bihar. Rashid has listed all the mavericks that have come. But on that note, thank you so much for this conversation, and we'll await.
Har ghar mein tiranga, Jai Hind.
And happy Independence Day. Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.